What's up, everybody? Justin Ochoa back with another episode of the Gym Sessions podcast. And today we have a great guest on. We have Brian McGill. He's a performance coach from Portland, Oregon, has a great background in the sport of basketball as an athlete, and also making a huge impact as a coach and a trainer. I do want to give a quick disclaimer that both Brian and I were recording this in the middle of a massive snowstorm in both of our cities. So there are some connectivity issues, there are some lagging issues. It's not the prettiest podcast you've ever seen. There are times where the audio might not be the clearest or the video might not be the clearest, but I promise you the content is money. So get through the ugliness. I promise you it's worth it. I will say that the first about 5 minutes of audio is a little scratchy and then it gets really, really smooth after that. So if you can bear with me for the first couple minutes during that bad audio, you'll get to the rest of the episode and the rest of it is pretty clear and easy to understand. But just wanted to put that out there. We kind of defied the odds with this snowstorm knocking out some Wi-Fi and connectivity in both of our cities, and we made it happen no matter what. So hopefully you guys appreciate that. Hopefully you guys really enjoy the episode. So let's get into it. This is episode 9 with Brian McGill.
Brian, man, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Coach, how are you? I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate you having me here.
No, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get into this. We've had a couple technical difficulties behind the scenes, but we got it going. I'm excited.
100%. We're here now. That's all that matters.
Yep, for sure. So before we get into it, I do want to ask about the snowstorm out there. We're going through a snowstorm as well. Just I know you're kind of on the West Coast, maybe not used to the snow or the temperatures that you're getting. How are you doing
so
out
I
there?
played college basketball for 4 years in Alaska, in Anchorage, Alaska. So personally, I'm good with the snow, the ice. Like, I'm not worried about it. I can drive in it. I'm cool. Portland, our infrastructure is not set up to handle that. So whenever it hits, for some reason, we continue to be unprepared. And it's been a nightmare. Honestly, it's kind of been a little bit of a stress reliever for me because I have guys that I've trained or work with or know that are out at school and they're trying to get home for the holidays because they have maybe like 2-3 days to a week if they're lucky. There's people stuck in the Portland airport. They're canceling flights left and right. Like, it's just bananas. So I'm just blessed to be in the position that I'm not having to deal with any of that right now. So life's good.
100%, man. So you kind of segued for me easily there. Let's talk about, who you are, what you do. You mentioned your career at Anchorage, but kind of give us the bio.
Yeah, shoot. So I was just a little kid that was pretty good at basketball, slightly naturally talented, worked really hard. I knew that my skills wouldn't be the limiting factor. Kind of same classic story that so many people in this industry have. But I was like, hey, let me just get a little bit athletic and let me bring up my body to match the skills and the work ethic. And I'm going to be in a good spot as far as being able to play as long as I can. And I connected in 8th grade with a mentor to this day named Henry Barrera. And back at that time, he was a trainer at Nike. He was working at the Nike campus, which is my backyard back in Portland. Um, Crushing it. He was maybe like 29, 30 when we first met. As of now, he's at Alabama as the men's basketball strength and conditioning coach. And in my opinion, just really one of the best in the world. But fortunately, he kind of saw just a little hungry kid that would work hard and show up if he was invited to given opportunities. And that's what I did. I just showed up, kind of manufactured some self-made athleticism, became kind of a training junkie or nerd even before I was really knowing what I was doing with it through high school. Got to college. One of the things up at Alaska Anchorage was an unbelievable arena, best Division II facilities in the country up there.
Yeah.
And we got a brand new strength coach that year, and he was Ryan Walsh. Is absolutely unbelievable. A lot of times in college, the strength coach's role is somewhat of a therapist a lot of the time because the guys can vent because he's part of the staff, but not really. And so me and Ryan got really close. I'm sure he got tired of me being in there asking him questions about why we're doing everything. Like, Ryan, like, take the training wheels off, man. Like, let me go. Like, let me just attack and like go a little bit harder than he wanted me to. But just had some unbelievable mentors. Played college basketball. I was a good player for the Division II level. I was the all-league guard. Played briefly in Germany the following year at the Pro B level, right outside Berlin, which is professional. It allowed me to say that I played pro hoops and checked it off the bucket list. I was probably
Hmm.
making like full-time minimum wage at Taco Bell, so we're not on the same level as a lot of the guys that I'm fortunate enough to work with now. But from that point, kind of honestly, I don't want to say I fell out of love with the game, but I fell out of love with the selfishness that was required to be as good as I could be, which was really my entire ethos while I was playing. Like that was the first thing that Henry challenged me with back in the day. It's like, hey, like let's see what we can get out of your potential. That's all that you have to offer anyway. Like let's see what we can get out of it. And that became my mission when it would no longer was. I was like, let me transition real quick. Worked for Lululemon for a little bit, helping them open like a flagship store with a fitness studio in there in Seattle. Got great at networking. I think it helped me a ton socially. I was able to see kind of how much money is in the private sector of fitness and studio fitness in general. Seattle's studio fitness market's booming, maybe second to New York City. Realized it wasn't my path. My dad got sick. He's totally fine now, but my dad got cancer in the fall of 2019. So packed up, moved back home to Portland. Didn't work, just was hanging out with him for that year and started coaching at my alma mater, which was Clackamas High School. I kind of realized I loved it. Connected, especially with a kid named Ben Gregg that really wanted to do a lot of extra work, especially in the weight room, who's now at Gonzaga, a really talented guy. And kind of some of those times that we shared, especially going through COVID, just reminded me of like my relationship with Henry. And I'm like, shoot, what am I doing in Seattle, man? Like I'm just out here spending way too much money in an apartment, like doing things that aren't fulfilling. I'm not offering a ton to the world. At least that's how I feel. Started coaching full time. Was fortunate enough to open a gym, like in the heart of COVID, which is a whole podcast in and of itself. Was fortunate
Yeah.
enough to have already had a huge base of knowledge. I was an exercise science major back in school. I'd worked in physical therapy, a whole bunch of stuff that I'm skipping steps, but basically full time started training in the spring of 2020 because of my basketball network and just the way that I kind of can speak to the game and kind of honestly speak to myself and sharing what I know and what I don't know, what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do, like what I understand and what I'm still trying to learn. Just being vulnerable with guys. I connected with a lot of really good players really quickly, and in a lot of ways, I'm extremely fortunate that way. That my career has been on a trajectory that I am blessed to get to work with some guys that a lot of trainers are grinding out years and years in the hopes of working with. So I don't take that for granted. Back in March, started working at a company called Rogue Performance Therapy, which is an unbelievable physical therapy place out in Portland. Was there the entire summer and then just kind of got to a point where I had started to build the online training stuff a little bit more. And I realized that what I wanted out of my career and my job was a little bit more flexibility and freedom. And that's kind of the path that I'm on now. I'm completely independent. I have a smaller number of clients than I ever have in the past. And just doing a lot more work with them, spending time with them on the court as well as in the weight room, and just kind of being more a part of their process, investing more heavily into a smaller number of people rather than a larger volume of clients and doing all the group trainings all day and stuff. So, man, went off on you for a second there, but that's kind of who I am,
I love it.
where I'm at, and yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's awesome, man. No, it's good to hear kind of your background and for listeners, obviously, kind of get to know who you are and some of the things that you've been through. You mentioned playing in Germany at the Pro B level. It's like a lot of people
yeah,
don't know how that grind is. You know what I mean? Where you're basically like for people that don't know Germany, you've got like top league, BBL, you've got Pro A, Pro B. I think the Regional Liga is under Pro B, but like there may be even another one under that. So it's like you're kind of on that middle tier of professional basketball, which is still the Americans that you're probably playing against are like dogs that probably maybe play D1 or high level D2, and you're making
100%.
1,200 a month or something like that. Talk about some of
Yeah.
that grind and just like noticing, or realizing maybe this might not be the path that I want to take.
It's crazy, man. So people love to glamorize it, and I think for a lot of people it's like
Mm-hmm.
studying abroad. It's like no, you're not going to like
Right.
just backpack around Europe and like go out and party and like meet all these girls and like and do this and that and see the sights. Like you're gonna have a practice in the morning. It's gonna be like a skill individual shoot around. You're gonna have some type of weight training or performance training or something like that at least 3 to 4 times a week. Then you're gonna have a practice at night with the entire team, and you're isolated, yeah, you're not in college. Like your teammates are great, but they also are
Right.
grown men with their own lives, families, stuff going on. it's just not the same environment. You're not living with your boys in the dorms playing video games, doing stuff all the time. If you want to travel, you can. Like the higher tier that you rise, the more access you have to that. But you can't just dip out on a train when you have to be back for practice that evening. You're getting your body right. A lot of times they'll play games on the weekends. So like we played in Germany on Sundays. So like you could get like if you care about partying or experiencing like the culture,
No
nightlife stuff
chance.
like
Yeah.
that, it's not really an option to the same extent. And guys just don't realize that. And then two, man, unless you're like a Duke, UCLA, like one of those schools, they don't really care if you're from like a Division II NAI or a Division I that we respect here in America. And you're gonna have to prove it just the same as anyone else. And like there's guys that I work with now. That's part of the fun and the enjoyment that I really get out of this job is like some of those guys that are climbing those ranks overseas. Like I have a client that started 4,000 a month his first year, which is great. It's
Yeah.
for me that's unbelievable. For someone that's pretty good, that's dirt money. And he's making $3.2 million a year to play basketball now, and it took him maybe like 4 to 6 years to get there. But if you're willing to sacrifice that and bet on yourself and keep grinding and go through that, it's there for you. It's not what you may think it is. Even if even if you
Yeah.
think you know what it is, you might show up there and it's not. You're more isolated. No one speaks your language. You can't just go make conversation at the grocery store all the time. Like, and then the culture shock for a lot of guys coming from America is just a lot to handle. So it sounds like I'm painting a negative picture, but like you referenced, it's just people have a false assumption
Hmm.
of what it's really like to play overseas. But then I will say, you do like if you start getting to like that Euro Cup, Euro League level, there are some unbelievable opportunities out there. There is a lot of money to play basketball for a long time. Like the spoils are there if you're willing to go through the journey.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of rookies that I've worked with in the past have started at like a Pro B level or in a country like Georgia or
Yep.
Armenia
Yep.
or I'm trying to think of some other ones. There's certain countries where like you're in their top league, but that top league, although there's quality basketball, you know what I mean, it's grown men, still pros. It's like they don't bring in that revenue, so they can't pay you.
Yep.
And there have been scenarios where like when I'm working with a rookie or somebody that's kind of climbing that ladder, it's like, hey, I can't pay you. You know what I mean? Like, can we work something out? Or they have to come home and get a job and to be able to pay for training or just like live. You know what I mean? Like people don't realize that's depending on where you are that you're getting paid in that country's currency. It may or may not even be more than what it is in America. Plus, you got to get home sometimes on your own, or you have to um, provide yourself with a certain amount of meals if the team doesn't provide it. Like, there's a lot of different levels of pro overseas basketball that does not get talked about enough.
You preaching to the choir, man, and I'm going a little bit off script here, but like as far as the trajectory of my career, I personally felt like it's so interesting. Like it's kind of an industry thing, but within strength conditioning in the private sector, like there's almost like a villainization of wealth creation at times. Like or there's pride in the struggle. It seems like of working some of those internships, and I agree with that to a large extent, but it really started to feel for me like I was in a position where I was not able to make as big an impact with the guys that I really wanted to because I had to constantly be coaching a large volume of clients to
Right.
pay my bills. And it just it bums me out that financial access has to be a thing that limits opportunities or limits the amount of change I feel like I can affect with a kid or a client. And that's kind of like driven the way that I've chosen to navigate the future of my career, which is really cool. And then, like you referenced too, I even in baseball, especially, it's a huge problem. Like, because kind of like you're like what we're referencing is kind of like the minor league systems in baseball, where guys are going into debt. How are you supposed to pay for an apartment in the summer, like on a 6 month lease? The rent price is jacked up, set 50%.
Right.
It's you got to work a job. Like, what if you have a family? Like, that could be a wrap. And that's kind of like down the road when I stop wanting to teach people to squat every day. Is something I'm really passionate about. Is just kind of with some of my clients from the Portland area too. Is just trying to create some type of I don't know if it would take the form of a nonprofit or what, but just being able to help support guys to have access to opportunity, especially the ones that deserve it. Cause it's such a bummer, man. Like it could, the payday could be there 3 to 4 years and you never see it because you have to stop, because you have to work a job and you can't get better because you have to provide for your daughter. And that's
Exactly.
like, I'm not saying that's the wrong decision. It is what it is. Like, that's life, and that's you being responsible dad, but it sucks.
Yeah, for dude, it's crazy. Like I've seen it. I've seen it happen to guys where like they have to make that choice, and ultimately, you're going to choose your family, but at the same time, you have it in you to play at a certain level. So the people, it's like you got to get a job, right? So, but you also want to train, but you're
Hmm.
working, so that manipulates your available time outside of work. So you either got to do it really, really early or really, really late, which is going to alter your recovery or just your training results in general.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys are basketball players, right? So
Yeah.
all through school, I mean, basketball is your job. So your resume doesn't have job experience. So you get a entry level job at like a warehouse or fast food or something with shitty hours, and then that takes a toll on your training, and then your training doesn't get you better. So
Yeah.
it's like that cycle, man. I've seen it
Yeah.
happen. It bums
I
me out.
I got a piece of advice too. Like, you just referenced this. So this is not an option for everyone. A lot of guys, you might need to take that warehouse, whatever that job may be. If you're in a position where you're younger, you're right out of college, maybe you're still in college. I'm never an advocate of trying to be a specialist of two different things. But like you said, a lot of these guys, myself, maybe yourself included, like, we went to college, we majored in something, but what did you really go to school for? Basketball.
Right.
You went to college for basketball. You have a 4-year degree in basketball. You were part of a college basketball
Right.
program. You have all that. What's going to be your highest bang for buck as far as finances go? It's probably going to be within basketball to some extent. So if you want to, like, if you could start as a skills trainer, as a performance trainer, like, you're going to become more knowledgeable about the game, about your body. The best way to learn something yourself is to be able to teach or explain it to others, or at least it's an indicator
Hmm.
of that. And it'll help with the entrepreneurial skills, if I didn't just say that. But if you're a younger guy with a little bit of flexibility as far as your income, and you're in a position where you have to make a little bit of extra money to keep chasing the dream, I would highly recommend thinking about ways you can monetize your basketball knowledge or experience. And you just get better as a player too, the more you understand it from the coach's perspective. But
Yeah.
oh man, all it's crazy. It's crazy. Not a lot of people understand it, so it's enjoyable to talk to someone about it.
Yeah, yeah, man. I see it. I see it every day. It's crazy, and like you said, there are definitely some spoils. You got to get to that level. But even when you get to like a Champions League or a higher level, or if you go to the Middle East or somewhere
Hmm.
like in Asia, like you're still gonna get some good paydays, even if you're not playing at the Euro League level or whatever. Like
Yeah.
when you get there, you're gonna be glad that you went through the couple of seasons that you did, because then you're making real money.
Same thing. Like, I have a client he's with Panther in the
Mm.
EuroLeague out of Athens, and he came so close to going to play in China and just getting that bag. And if people don't
Yeah.
realize, Europe, if you're on a good team in Europe, that's a 9-10 month season. Like,
Yep.
that's most of the year. If you're in
Yep.
China, that's a 4 to 6 month season for the more money a lot of the times. The only issue is it's tough to go to Asia and then keep climbing the ranks in Europe because they don't respect that brand of basketball's
Yep.
translating to him. But same like Kyle Wiltshire, like, he was he came straight out of the NBA training camp this fall and went straight to China. He's over there playing in China now, and like, there's a lot of guys too. I have a couple guys that play in Taiwan actually on the same team, and they're playing against like Dwight Howard and stuff
Yeah.
now, and they're both at the tail ends of their career, or at least starting to get that to that point. But
Yeah.
the bags are out there if you want to keep going, man.
Dude, it's awesome. Yeah. So let's transition a little bit into something that you mentioned. What kind of brought up a thought is coaching, right? So
Yeah.
that's another avenue that I think would be easy for guys to kind of bridge that gap if they need to get some income while they work their way up. So coaching was actually like what I got into first, before strength conditioning, before
Hmm.
training, anything, because it was just like, oh, my old AAU program needs a coach. Like that's an
Yeah. Yeah.
easy in. You know what I mean? They know
Yeah.
I'm solid.
Yeah.
So basically, I know you're a coach at the high school level and probably have been at multiple levels. What are some of the things right now as a coach that you're seeing from athletes that you're coaching or playing against? In general, that athletes are just lacking right now from a skill or strength perspective?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't want to sound too much like an old head. To start, I guess with basketball though, there's been a powerful shift towards like the individual skill set that I think has really like revolutionized the game. There's so many positive things. Like, um, players are more skilled now than ever. Like the game is evolving so well, but there still seems to be a lack of kind of understanding about how to basically space the court or speak like the universal language of basketball. And that's probably the biggest thing is just kind of losing some of those team oriented things that the older
Hmm.
guys maybe understand a little bit better than they do now. And then man, I sound like a coach, and my team, we're actually riding high right now. We're coming off a championship. We beat a team called John Bosco, a tournament championship. John
Yeah,
Bosco from Southern California. That's a really respected program, ton of NBA alumni. We beat Modesto Christian, another really, like, we're doing great right now, and we're playing solid defense. Like, we're clamping guys.
yeah,
But defensively, I don't think there's as much of an understanding about the importance of team defense and not being a liability defensively. Like I try to tell the guys, like there's so many guys making millions of dollars making corner threes and just staying in front of their
locking
man.
up.
And
Yep.
and defense may not or offense defense may not get you on the court, but it will keep you off the court, especially when you make the jump to the next level. And that's just one thing as far as basketball goes. Uh Weight room wise, it's interesting. Like with basketball players or guys in general, like there's just a lack of general coordination, and it's kind of weird because you talk about specificity versus generalities, and the more generally coordinated, athletic, rhythmic, fluid, the better timing you have in every kind of movement, I think the
Right.
better you will be specifically within basketball. The more tools you have, the more movement tools you have in your movement toolbox, the better able you'll be able to solve problems on the court. So that's the biggest thing. And it's kind of tough because when you want to introduce some of those things, or especially for like a sixth to ninth grader that doesn't play other sports, like you might want to introduce some of these different movement patterns for injury prevention, so we're not doing the same thing every day playing this much
Right.
basketball, from a low level plyo impact as far as making sure their tendons stay juiced up and feeling good, from a coordination, timing, rhythm, movement skill standpoint. They kind of look a little bit goofier, and it's tough sometimes for me personally to want to share a lot of that stuff, just because sometimes it can be viewed as what's really the intent here. People have so many things to say on the internet, but that would be kind of the biggest thing. I think though, ultimately, I'm pretty optimistic about the way that the industry is trending in basketball. Like if you look at it, when I was in high school, like it was incredibly more novel than it is now. Social
Oh yeah.
media obviously is helping the training profession, hurting and helping the training profession. But I think it's also just letting players know. It's giving players resources more than it's giving even coaches resources, because they see all these guys doing it. They understand the value of it. There's just little things that help legitimize it, like LeBron talking about his finances with his body. And I think
Yeah.
just generally, like, even though we're not where we need to be at as a sport, like we're definitely headed down the right direction with a lot of momentum and moving really quickly. So that would be a couple of, and then typically like there's with younger athletes, there seems to be a baseline just lack of level of strength that I think is just like if you help high school kids just get a little bit stronger, a lot of these other things tend to sort themselves out at times. But yeah, a little bit of a rambled answer for you, but that's kind of what comes to mind
That's what I
first.
love. I love rambled
Yeah.
answers. That's what I want because it gives me
Got
my
to write
next
down.
question.
Yeah.
So I did a defensive camp. It was a 4 week series, right? It was like day one we tested and did like some general drills, and
Yeah.
then the next week we did progressed versions of those general drills. And then the next week we worked in like some team concepts. And
Hmm.
then the fourth week we retested and then went all live drills, like based on some of these
Yeah.
concepts. And it was like, I mean, it was cool to see the improvements from like a data standpoint on their testing, and it was cool to get the feedback from their parents and like, oh,
Yeah.
he looked better in his game or whatever, he's locking up. I
Yeah.
love that, but I totally agree, like the defensive thing, it's just not, I don't know, man, it's just not where it needs to be from, I think, a coaching standpoint and a training standpoint, and then also from the athlete's perspective. Like I just don't think that they understand the importance of how quick you will get your ass sat on the bench if you don't defend. Like, you're a coach. I mean,
Yeah,
you're probably benching guys every night for this, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, they. I'm just thinking about like some of my players. If they end up listening to this, they're like they're probably turning it off right now. But then 100%, 100%, and it's like that's something too. Like as far as just trying to change the culture internally, at least within my team, because that's the culture that I have the biggest influence on. Like the game of
Hmm.
basketball would be great too, but like if you look at like a guy like Marcus Smart, like the Boston Celtics, probably the best basketball team in the world right now because Team USA isn't assembled. The reason
Yeah,
he's the starting point guard for that team is because he plays defense. He's also has a few screws loose that kind of help with just
yeah,
his persona around that defensive energy. If you look at a guy like Davion Mitchell, I can't remember what he went in the draft, but it was top 15. He's a great he can maybe be in the NBA off the strength of his offense. If he was an average defender, he's probably like a late second to undrafted signed free agent. Like,
right.
and he's in the lottery because he can sit down and guard guys. And there's like I'm walking out. There's a kid on my team named Adrian Mosley. He's a Division 1 player. He's probably like a as of right now maybe a low major offensive player, but he's a high major defensive player. Played against the #1 point guard in the class of 2025. I can locking guys down this entire last weekend. He had 10 blocks as a 6'2" guard,
That's
4 of them
crazy.
against the 6'10" Division 1 post. And I'm just trying to tell him, like, man, if you really want to play at the highest level possible, lean into the defensive stuff, man. It's not cool to be an elite defender. Like you're still scoring on, you're still getting buckets, you're still dunking on people. Take pride, like have that energy, have that intensity and that focus every single game, and you're there's always going to be a team for you as long as
Yeah.
you want to keep.
No, I was gonna say I made it sound like I've been on this train for like the last 10 years, but it was only. I mean, obviously we know defense is important, but it was only 3 or 4 years ago when I started working with a coach named Dre Davis, who his two sons are at Seton Hall now, Tay and Dre Davis Jr. But literally, like that was his thing. Like he would,
Yeah.
and I loved it because his son being on the team helped him with the buy-in. Because if his son, who was like Mr. Basketball nominee,
Yeah.
like best player in the state, in my opinion,
Yeah.
NBA body, NBA talent, like he will be in the NBA one day.
Yeah.
If his son didn't play defense according to like what our scheme was, what our assignments were, he would be sitting right next to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, if he's sitting Tay down, like I got to get right. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that, like, I think it was the year before COVID, like when I was like, oh my gosh, the his coaching style. You always hear like defensive coach. He's a defensive minded coach, and you never really like know unless you're in the locker room what that means.
Mm-hmm.
But our game plans offensively were so simple because he would always say like, it doesn't matter what they're doing. We will watch film uh, solely on the other team to figure out how we're going to defend it. Right? We
Mm-hmm.
never watched our own offensive film. We never talked really about offense like game days and walkthroughs.
Yeah.
All we did was walk through their plays and talk about how we were going to defend it. Everything revolved around defense. And at the high school level, I thought that was pretty cool because you don't
Yeah.
really see that depth, that level of like identity at the high school level. Because a lot of these kids are cool just being like, getting a varsity jacket and then
Yeah.
hanging it up. But like we
Yeah.
had dogs that wanted to play at the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that changes the game completely. Uh, I and that's what I tell people is there's not like a certain age I work with or a certain anything. It's really just the motivate. Like if you're a dog, like I would love to train you. Whether
Yep.
you've never picked up a basketball and you're in 6th grade or whether you're making millions of dollars playing in the NBA, like
Yeah.
100%. Those are always the funnest kids to work with.
Yeah. You mentioned Davion Mitchell too. Like I want to talk about his movement too, because like from a movement standpoint, I think Marcus Smart is definitely the best defender in the league, all in all. I like McGill Bridges also, but like part of it is because his length and his
Yeah.
speed. Like, but as far as like movement, I think Davion Mitchell might be like the best movement defender in the league because the way he starts and stops, like his hip mobility. like the way he can cut and come in and out of those cuts and plants, I think is like I can't believe he hasn't busted shoes before. You know what I mean? The way he
Yeah.
stops and plants. Do you do you have any like general thoughts on just like if that stuff, and I know my answer, I think I know what you're gonna say, if that type of stuff can be taught or if he's just like he's that dude no matter what.
Yeah, combination.
Right.
Like, there's so many factors to that. Like, there's the physical capacity that his body has that allow him to do that. There's the
Right.
movement skills that his body has that allow him to do that. I mean, obviously, there's some stuff that he has that no one will ever be able to develop in the weight room, no matter what the program is. But then there's also the mentality behind it and what's allowed him
Hmm.
to do that. And Davion Mitchell specifically, I'm bummed. I have a buddy that's from out in the Pacific Northwest that named Rem, who he played at Gonzaga. Then he was a GA at Baylor when they won the national championship, and he was like the GA with Davion Mitchell building his game at Baylor for like most of his career. They're still super tight to this day. He was supposed to come down the spring he got drafted after they won the national championship because he was staying with Rem in Portland. And Rem hit me up,
Oh, that would have
man,
been
like, if
sick.
you wouldn't mind getting the weight room with us for a few days while we're here, like, let's do it. And I'm like, duh. Uh, and
Yeah.
then he ended up having the tournament he did and got signed to a way bigger agency that I forget which agency, but they had his pre-draft stuff already mapped out, obviously.
Hmm.
So a little bit of a bummer there, but we can teach a lot of the skills. We can get more explosive. We can teach some of the things like his hip dissociation is unbelievable. The way he can like really flip his hip, sprint to a spot, get there. We can do things to get stronger through our core. We can teach how to put force through the ground at the correct angles to not get bumped off our spot as easy. But it's really just the effort. Like if you go Google Davion Mitchell highlights, like a lot of the plays that he's making defensively, he might get beat off the dribble. He might be like
Yeah.
got hit on or snagged up on a ball screen, but he just stays in the play so freaking long. And then by the end of it, like he just gets his hand on something or like tips a pass or gets a block because they assume that he's out of the play at this point. And a lot of it's just the mentality. And not everyone has the ability to have that mentality, but I do think it is something that can be taught and you can be exposed to. Because I feel like I personally experienced that. There has to be a hunger and a desire there, and if you don't have that, it's not going to happen.
For sure, man. So you mentioned hip dissociation. Big thing for defense, big thing for any athletic
Hmm.
output. But watching him in college, like, really changed the way that I thought about defense, and I've been kind of on the fence about it. But I noticed in college, like, he never slid for more than like two slides. You
I
know what I
mean,
mean? Like
yeah,
two slides and he's sprinting. You know what I mean? Turn and sprint, or he's opening up. So talk about some of that, some of the teachings there. I know we have probably similar philosophies on that because that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like sliding is too slow.
yeah.
So you got to get to your next movement and then you can cut them off, square back up, maybe get back into a slide. But there's so many variations of that kind of just general question that gets you on a rant.
Yeah, for sure. No, like, so I guess I feel like that's interesting. So I feel strongly. I'm not like you ask anyone that trains with me. I'm not a super like cocky guy about my own personal basketball ability. Like if I hype myself up, I'm joking. But like with the exception of maybe like Patrick Beverly and maybe Mark, I don't even know. There's not a lot of NBA players that I think can press me full court without having to turn their hips at least one time. And I might not make it past half court, but I'm gonna get you to turn your hips one time. And like that's just it's not a thing. It's just a myth of basketball, like so many other things have come and gone, that you should not cross your feet. Like you're not gonna be able to guard anyone, definitely not in space. Um, so I'm huge on that. It's slide, push, turn, sprint, cut them off. And then beyond, it's kind of a hybrid question with the basketball and the strength and conditioning stuff. Beyond that, I think the other thing too is defense is even like inherently wrong in the word. Like you're defending your hoop, but we should be much more offensive defensively as far as the angles that we're attacking them, as far as trying to anticipate and beat them to their spot. Then by the time they realize we beat them there, we're already anticipating the next spot. Like we have to be much more active and way less reactionary as defenders if you really want to be a great elite on ball defender. And then it's just as far as the movement stuff skill goes. It's interesting. Like we train in so many straight lines. the game of basketball is rarely played in straight lines. I'm not against that stuff. I do it all the time. But just being able to kind of work on some of those skills, like literally just like a put, what I used to call it a push turn into a sprint. Just there's so many just progressions of just hip dissociation drills you can do starting on the wall. Any type of like rotationary med ball toss or something is like there's a lot of ways to work on those physical qualities, and then beyond that, just going and actually competing defensively and getting better at the skill of defense, I think is a huge thing too.
Right. Yeah. At that camp that I hosted, we watched 15 to 20 minutes of film every week, and I would always
Yeah.
bring up like these myths like this that I was taught growing up. You know, we never cross your feet,
Hmm.
get in a defensive stance, right? And so one of the
Hmm.
biggest things and I do believe like to move well laterally, you're going to have to be low and wide. You're going to have to
Hmm.
strike outside your frame, and there's a time and
Yeah.
place to get in that low stance. But if you watch Pat Bev play defense, he's quarter squat at best. It's
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
upright, and it's
Yeah.
more like he's more like skipping, hopping to a
Yeah.
spot. He'll
Yeah.
shuffle
Yeah.
one or two times, but like you said, you're going to where they're gonna be. You're not going to where
Yeah.
they are, or even at an angle. Like you got to go where you think they're gonna be, and then from an offensive perspective, that's them reading the defender. Then they counter that. But again, you're reacting to that to go to where they're going to be after that
Yeah.
counter. So it's
Yeah.
constantly like a chess game. And I feel like the more aggressive defenders, and not necessarily aggressive physically, but aggressive mentally, are going to stand out because they're not afraid to look like they got crossed because they know they
Yeah.
can make it up
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
appropriately move to the next spot.
100%. 100%, man. I completely agree.
Yeah, and then none of this is on the sheet, by the way. We're just going off top of the dome now. Like
Nah, that's the best.
I
Yeah.
got, I get passionate about this defense stuff, man.
No.
Like I've been
Yeah.
on this like journey trying to teach it to kids
Yeah.
and adults. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, dude, it's the best way to make yourself a valuable asset to your team. Like
Hmm.
I feel
Hmm.
so strongly about defense,
Yeah. Yeah. I love
and
it.
I'm not even coaching anymore at this time. I'm I'm off the bench now for at least a year, so it's
It's
here for
tough.
life.
Like I've been saying for like the last 3 years, it was gonna be my last year, and then I just don't stop. So we'll see.
It's because
We'll
all
see.
the juniors on the team will
Yeah.
say, "Oh, come on, you got to stay for our senior year. Come on, coach." But
Literally.
then there's a
Yeah.
new crop of juniors that are
Yeah.
going
It's
to say the
happened.
same
That's
thing.
literally happened 3 times in a row now. That's hilarious.
I already know, man. So let's talk a little about training. We'll
Yeah.
talk strength conditioning, like sports performance. Is that where you spend most of your time, or is it kind of like a split between skill development as well?
Most definitely sports performance. I'm just myself, man, and I know the game of basketball. I can like people know like if you talk to me as a client, like I know basketball. You see me move. I played basketball. And it's kind of been them asking me to join in on some of this skill stuff. That's kind of been the thing that's making me do a lot more of that and enjoy it so much more. There's a guy that I trained that plays for the Boston Celtics named Peyton Pritchard. And the first time that I really started doing a lot of court stuff, he's like, man, I used to do this at Oregon before practice when it was in college. He's like, I just have like the GAs who are good former D1 players like guard me for 100 possessions. And so we literally just start playing one on one. I'm playing defense the entire time. 10 possessions a spot, like block, block, elbow, elbow, top, like all over the court. 5 stops is a win, 6 buckets for him is a win. And so like he's just getting live reps versus like for his standards shadow defense, but I'm playing as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And it's addicting, man. Like, and now you're competing with them. Like, you're talking shit. Excuse my language. You're having fun. The competitive juices are there. The respect is there because he can see me busting my ass, and I'm getting some stops here and there. Like I'm being fit. He's not bullying me all the time.
Hmm.
And I just started to realize. And then he would ask me the next day, and I'm like, man, I got a bunch of groups coming in this afternoon. Like I can't leave today, bro. I'm sorry. Uh, and then I just started scheduling more and more and more court time in. Then the same thing started happening with other guys. Then I'm a high school coach, so guys are hitting me up to play open gyms all the time. So I'm opening the gym for pros at night. If they have nine or someone got to leave early, if something happens, now I'm the 10. Like now I'm playing with the guys. Now they're having fun with that because like if your coach is playing with you, it's typically a good time. And it's just kind of like it's been a natural progression towards me just being in the gym a lot more. I don't call myself a skills trainer because I don't design workouts for these guys. I'll help with whatever I can. They'll ask me questions. I'll give my thoughts. Like we have conversations about basketball, about skills, how to get into shots, different moves, everything like that. But I'm not watching their game tape. I'm not studying the game to the point that I feel comfortable being like, hey, you should listen to what I think about basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at this point, high school is a little bit different. Like they're not making their living to play basketball. They're not the top 0.01% in the entire world already. So like my knowledge base is probably more than satisfactory to deliver optimal results at that level. But that's just why I haven't really branded myself that way with the pro guys.
No, I feel that, bro. I've definitely gotten humbled so many times trying to jump in, even if it's the ones or even just shooting
Yeah,
workouts, man. It's like,
yeah.
God,
I mean, it's easy because I'm like, if I make anything happen, I'm like, you're really letting your trainer cook you right now. And if I get scored on or something doesn't go my way, it's like, man, you're supposed to be scored on me. Like you're a pro, bro. What are we talking about? Like, of course.
right, exactly. So, strength conditioning, we'll talk like sports performance and all of that. What
Yeah.
would you say, like from a coaching perspective? What is kind of like your core values, your core philosophy, kind of what you run your program on?
Yeah, most definitely. So I don't know. It's obviously a general question, of course, but it's a great question. And my whole thing is self actualization within sports. Like, what is your individual highest potential, and how are we going to get you there? And that's going to be different for everybody. I guess I'm going to answer the question more through the framework of my current group of clients, which is probably like 10 or less people, honestly, that I'm investing a ton of time in. And at this point, they all need slightly different things. Like whatever that may be, if they're a little bit older and they don't enjoy like some of the stuff with higher impact loading in the summers, even like we'll kind of tailor that more to them as long as we're getting those reps in. I have a couple people making a lot of money that are coming off like some crazy nerve injuries, which is a whole other probably podcast in itself, just the journey that's been, but very tailored to what they need. I have a couple guys that are like three people like 6'10", 6'11". So just finding ways to make sure that we're getting even strength through full ranges of motion, and everything's continuing to build the way we want to, and being able to fit then tailor the program and the exercise selection to their frames is always different. So it's kind of, and then also scheduling, man. Like it's always so easy on paper to be like, oh, I'm gonna do like block periodization, undulating periodization. Then these guys leave at 6 a.m. when you're supposed to work out at 7 because they're going to play in the Drew League for a weekend, and they then
Right.
fly to LA for a week to do whatever else. Then they're all over the place. So sometimes the programming can be tough. So when you talk about like central tenets, like yeah, there's some big blocks that we'll always hit on. Like we'll always do some type of absolute strength or like absolute force work. We're gonna do some like we're gonna work on our hips, ankles, knees, T spine, or not knees, but hips, ankles, T spine. We're gonna do some like rate of force development stuff, some speed strength stuff, like basically just hitting kind of every single curve of the force velocity curve in some capacity. Um, but as far as like boiling it down, it's almost not a west side conjugate, but a conjugate approach where we're kind of staying in what some may call like the hypertrophy, strength, and power rep zones throughout a lot of the summer. And we might have a little bit of a block periodization as far as those terms generally as the summer goes on, but we're working on multiple qualities at once. And for me personally, I've just found that it's the easiest way to get the most done because the schedules of those guys are ever changing. Everyone is so unique as far as what we need to focus on with them that it ends up becoming kind of their own program anyways. And yeah, not the easiest answer to follow, but within the framework, like whatever the context is for the guys, kind of we just work backwards. Where is he at? What does he need? Let's work backwards from there.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing anyway. Like you can't have a one size fits all approach. You can definitely have like your kind of like core pillars, obviously,
Hmm.
but if you try to put everybody within that same program or same template,
Hmm.
somebody's not going to get what they want, or
Yeah.
somebody's going to actually take a step back because whatever that whatever that program is tailored to might be great for one person, but the opposite of what the other person needs. Like kind of
100%.
what you mentioned, like with the bigger guys. I mean, they got long levers, like 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers are not meant to squat at the depth that is deemed like appropriate for most athletes. And so you just gotta, like you said, customize it to a certain extent. And I think it helps like your approach of having, putting more time into less clients is definitely an approach that I'm kind of like leaning towards now, because it's tough, man. Like it'd be nice to have all the volume, but if you really, really, really want to dive in on these programs and getting them exactly tailored to what that athlete needs, it's really hard with over 10 clients. Like
Yeah.
somebody's going to
Yeah.
have to get
100%.
generalized at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
What was
For
kind of
sure.
like your turning point with that model? Did you go from like a high volume to like, I'm not getting what I want out of this? Like kind of what was your journey there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of, I'm a little bit of a trailblazer, no pun intended, from Portland, but it just became, eh, I didn't have the freedom to spend more time on the court with a lot of those guys in the summers, and that actually really bothered me. Um, like I just had a feeling, honestly, over the past summer that I wanted to be able to be more available, and like even having conversations with Peyton, like he's asking about what like how can we make this happen so that you're more available with for me next summer to like be on the court and do all this stuff, and like having to say no to going on vacations with guys and stuff like that. They just want to bring me along so they can get their extra work in while they're on vacation. It's just tough, and I was like, you know what? How like what I would really like to do, because you hear from college guys that transition from the private sector all the time, that the best thing about being in the college or the team sports setting is being able to be with the guys year round, and like you're putting in all this work, but then bang, you're sitting courtside getting ready to watch them play every
Mm-hmm.
game, so you're really there for the whole process. I was like, man, like I know I want to stay in the private sector. How can I add the pros of the public sector with the pros of the private sector? And for me, that was basically just being able to find other monetization strategies, being able to train guys online and be able to do it from anywhere. And then I'm going to have as much time as I want in the summers to just devote to spending with those guys. And in the winters, I'll be able to travel around a little bit and be able to go see some of these guys' games. Like I'm actually going to go with my girlfriend to Europe in the spring, go travel around, hit a bunch of countries, watch guys play, and just being able to do stuff like that for me is invaluable and something that I wasn't really willing to settle for being not being able to do. So I don't know if there was a light bulb moment necessarily. I think it was just kind of a slow, gradual build over the last 2 summers where I was really craving that freedom to be able to be on the court and just be involved with everything when it comes to their off season.
Yeah,
So
that's dope, man. I love that approach. Do you think, like as a trainer, have you gone through? I mean, we all do go through like changes and
yeah,
evolutions. You know what I mean? What kind of describe your evolution from all the
for
stops
sure,
that you've had?
for sure. Man, I started just the blind leading the blind. Like we're doing a lot of like our exercise selection is great if you don't really have any goal and you're not really putting it together for any reason. This is back when I was with the high school kids, so I don't feel guilty about that. Like it
Yeah,
was extra volunteer work at
yeah.
the time. So we're there learning with me. And then from there it's just been just kind of refining, feeling like less is more a lot of the time. It's crazy. Like even talking to my mentors, the more you learn, the more you revert to simplicity. But as a young coach, sometimes that's difficult to feel confident within. Probably started a little bit more towards just like the output end of the spectrum, like just chasing crazy force
Hmm.
outputs. Like if we can if we can put out more absolute force and we can produce our force faster, like we're gonna become freaky athletes. So maybe more the bigger, stronger, faster version, then kind of starting to, I think when I went to Roke especially, they view it from a movement perspective first and a physical therapy perspective first. So definitely started trending more towards three-dimensional strength, training in 3 dimensions of movement, not just 3 planes of
Hmm.
movement. maybe leaning more into some of the mobility work or some of like the loaded mobility stuff. Uh, feeling feeling okay. Like I don't back squat guys anymore unless it's something that they have to get ready for in college or want to do. Feeling okay, like just really owning my exercise selection, and not doing some like the classic big bolts in the strength conditioning industry. That's an interesting question. It's kind of just been ever evolving. I think it's like the Bruce Lee quote, man. Like, uh, I'm gonna butcher it, but basically, like, take from everyone, see what works for you, what does not work, add what is uniquely your own, and basically go from there. And that's basically been what I've done. I've had so many great mentors over the short time I've been doing it, from Henry at Alabama to everyone at Roke, that the gym I was at. They're unbelievable. The physical therapists, they're unbelievable. Continuing ed environment, unbelievable. Coach Mike G, the Mr. Do It Moving on Instagram, works with a couple of the guys that I work with when they're in Portland. They've spent a lot of their summers in LA with him. So having him as a resource has been unbelievable, as far as like some of his more unique approaches.
Hmm.
Um, that's also kind of too part of the motivation for wanting to have a little bit more time and flexibility, especially in the winter months or off season, is like I think it's a really easy trap for coaches to get into, of stop developing themselves as a coach. And it's like, well, like all these guys that you're training are literally like trying to take advantage of their off season to level up and then go back to what they do. But if you're not careful, you can sometimes fall into the trap of ceasing your own education. And I'm kind of like excited, especially next off season, to take like the players model and like how can I get better as a coach while I have a longer off season from training these in person guys? What courses can I take? What certifications can I get? Like right now, for example, I'm thinking about a couple different manual therapy courses. I'm getting ready to take like the functional range conditioning course. Probably thinking about some type of like cupping certification or something like that, just kind of expanding the toolbox. And I think just the time and ability and energy to do that is only going to expedite my evolution as a coach through the next stages ultimately.
Yeah, 100%, man. So, yeah, like that evolution kind of sounds similar to mine, where you start off kind of like with what you know, and then you find out
Yeah,
how, like how
yeah,
you refine it, how you basically implement your college strength program or something, and then you're like, oh, I
yep,
remember why I
yep,
hated this
yep,
shit, and then you refine it from
yep.
there. So, what about and this is kind of like overlapping, but it's still unique in its own route. But like your program or your basically your
Yeah,
model of how you intake
yeah.
an athlete, assess what they need, uh, program that, and then carry it out.
Most definitely. I mean, I'm a huge like we studied leadership in college, and my leadership style is leader member exchange theory. So it's basically like the leader of a group or in a relationship, like you're basically leading based off the strength of the individual relationships of you to everyone in the group. And so if my clientele is the group, like my strength I think comes from being able to connect just at an emotional and social level with guys, really get to understand who they are as people, understand their motivation sources, like why is this important to them, like are they doing this because someone told them they have to and they could really give a shit, are they doing this because they're desperately want to dunk or make varsity? Or are they trying to get a what is their motivation? And then you learn how to coach them. I think that's the biggest thing. As far as assessments and stuff like that go, I mean, it's typically pretty basic. Just three big questions like what is your training history, injury history, what are your goals, and then from there we end up learning a lot just in the conversation there. I don't do a ton right now of actual physical assessments, like we're getting data. I haven't been a fan of anything that I've used so far. Like I used to use the FMS stuff, and I just, for a number of reasons, don't feel like it's the best program for me. I think I typically now, especially with like someone, my clients now, I'll take them to Kent Morimatsu at Rogue Physical Therapy and have him look at them,
Mm.
have him give some assessment, and tell me what he thinks, and just kind of outsource some of the assessment stuff if I feel like that's necessary to people that I consider smarter than myself. And then a big part of it, man, is just in watching them move. Like I'll go watch tape on the guy. Like I'm gonna make sure I understand what their game is. I'm going to understand where they're coming from a physical perspective with their training history and their injuries. You'll see what they're required to do on the court, what they're good at, what they're bad at, their movement patterns. From there, it just kind of becomes a little bit more innate. And then as far as the strength stuff goes, like, well, we have a few KPIs that we'll hit. Just like a mid thigh iso pull, some just a non counter movement vertical jump, counter movement vertical jump, some drop jump stuff, and just like, and then a few like key strength block or strength lifts that we'll track obviously and try to work through. For us, a lot of the time it ends up being like the trap bar deadlift and just the rear foot elevated split squat are two of the biggest ones for those. Like I'm do a lot of heavy bilateral stuff, but it's typically with the trap bar, and then a lot of our heavy lower body work ends up being some type of unilateral work like sled pushes, split squats, rear foot elevated split squats, single leg RDLs, stuff like that. Um, and just track the numbers, make sure we're progressing appropriately.
No, that's dope. Something that you mentioned, like the mid thigh iso pull, some of the counter
Yeah,
movement jumps. Are you guys tracking that on like force decks, or you got like um,
yeah.
a crane scale or anything like that?
So crane scale is an easy one for everyone. We have the go eccentrics. I'm blanking on the name. The G strength.
Mm,
And then like we just got the G flight, all the go eccentrics equipment. We've done some RSI stuff with that. We did that at the beginning of our summer last summer, which went pretty well. They're a little bit tougher to track. I typically will just favor the jump mat, which is a little bit controversial, but I'm just not gonna let guys cheat. Like
yeah,
as long as the intent is there and we're making sure we're not lifting our legs at the landing, which is pretty freaking obvious to see if guys are doing. It's for our testing purposes, it's straightforward enough. Um, and then so much of it though, at a certain point, like our numbers, because it sometimes can be a little bit subjective. Success as a strength conditioning coach when you're trying to supplement a sport. Just because I don't have an extreme level of confidence in saying that if your mid thigh iso pull goes for like 400 pounds to 700 pounds, that's going to make the difference in your game this season. So a lot of it is somewhat intuitive and feedback driven, which is something that's okay, especially with the level of player that I'm working
right.
with. And then obviously we can see their performance on the court, and that's just another opportunity to kind of gauge how they're moving, although it may not be tangible or objective.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's funny. I just had this conversation with a group chat that I'm in, and I was listening to a podcast. I'm not going to say who it was or who or what it was because I don't want to shit on
Yeah.
anybody. But this guy was saying that his product led an NBA player to improve his points per game by 9 points per game, improve his rebounds by 6 points per game,
No,
and made him an all star. And I'm like, bro, come on,
no,
man. Like
no.
it might have helped a little
And
bit, like, but come on, bro. Like he was in the gym working.
performance training is supplemental to the sport. This like skills will always pay the bills, and that's why it could almost be interpreted as ducking responsibility, but like we were referencing with the evolutions of your career as a coach, like I can go and look at guys where we like our force output went through the roof. Like we got our back squat went way stronger, our deadlift got way stronger. And that can for some people that's gonna have a huge effect. It can be huge, it can change your game, but it's not necessarily the end all be all. Causation is not correlation a lot of the times, and it's just kind of led me to be a little bit more intuitive in my
Yeah.
approach. And some people might not like that answer, but I don't really care.
No, it's facts, dude. Like it's crazy how you'll notice that strength coaches, performance coaches, skills trainers, people who are attached to people um, as a service provider will be all rah rah when things are good. And then, God forbid,
Yeah,
that player goes down for an injury or goes through a slump or whatever, they go ghost. And like, it's like you got to be there no matter what, like through the good and the bad. You can't be there
yeah,
celebrating the wins, and then when you take an L, like
yeah,
you blame it on the team staff or somebody else. You know what I mean?
yeah. And I should make myself super clear. Like, yes, we do have KPIs. We are charting our weights. We're charting our strength numbers. Everything. Like we're seeing numeric like objective numbers increasing or not. But it's the KPI that I take in the highest regard is probably a lot more subjective and intuitive and feedback driven from the athlete, and it's just
Mhm.
that's the one I'm valuing the most.
100%. Yeah. At the end of the day, that film don't lie, man. So it's either going to translate or not,
Yeah,
and that's what it is.
yeah,
So I want to talk about something that you've mentioned throughout this podcast, but that's just like the Portland culture, Portland basketball culture. You told me before the show that you're really trying to
yeah,
grow that. You're trying to like really give back to the community. Talk a little bit about the
yeah.
city and things you got going on.
Yeah, so I don't want to take too much credit for that because that's like basically a lot of the people that I work with. There's a lot of pros I'm fortunate enough to train from Portland that we live right down the freeway from Seattle. Seattle's like 3 hours north of us, right up I-5. And they're kind of famous, probably worldwide. Hopefully it's spread to your neck of the woods that Seattle's basketball community and culture is just elite. They're very fostering of all the young talent coming up through the city. They're looking out for each other. They're creating opportunities. They have the Jamal Crawford Pro Am. Like every guy that makes it out of Seattle is coming back to Seattle and investing in the basketball community there. And a lot of guys in Portland are just a little bit, I don't know if envious is the right word, but we want that too. And they don't feel like it's something that's really been established strongly enough at this point, and they want to be the ones to do it, which is really cool. I've gotten to coach Peyton's Pritchard's Pro Am team and our little Portland Pro Am thing that we have the last 2 summers. We inaugural or not re-inaugural when they restarted the champions. Then we took a tough loss last summer to Mike James' team. Mike James is another guy that I'm fortunate enough to work with. He's been with the Phoenix Suns, Brooklyn Nets, and then in the EuroLeague for the longest time. And he's in Monaco now, but one of the best scorers in the entire world. And so even within like just the paid like it's Team Pritchard versus Mike's team's rivalry, it's just been dope. Like Mike has Kevin Durant out here at the Pro Am. He had a softball, like a celebrity softball game at the end of the summer, and KD, John Wall, a few other actors and people. He had flown out to Portland, and he's really just trying to bring people to the city. He's playing in the Pro Am every weekend, just seeing the energy that all those guys are kind of like putting into building that community and that culture is really special, and just something that we're absolutely going to keep going. And like we talked about before, like just creating opportunities for guys. Like I don't know how soon that's going to be, hopefully sooner than later. But eventually one day I would love to be a part of or set up and run a nonprofit or some type of organization where we can help supplement opportunities for people, whether that's with free basketball training, free performance training, financial assistance, depending on their personal situations, whatever that may be. It's just, that's another big thing that I just feel crazy passionate about, man. And I really want that to be my legacy on basketball.
That's dope. Yeah, it sounds like it's growing. I definitely like being from Indianapolis. Like the basketball culture is crazy here, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
something that's been my entire life, and now that I'm in it, like as a coach and even a parent, is like, shoot, man, it's I didn't really know how serious it was growing up. From a youth aspect, like what's it
Yeah.
like in Portland? Is that starting to trickle down to the kids?
Definitely. And I think it's more so even a community of guys that like make it out. Like we have some good youth programs and there's a lot of stuff going on too, but even some of their frustrations just with like there's even like the Nike EYBL
Hmm.
circuit, like there hasn't been a mainstay Portland team or Oregon team for more than a few years at a time, whereas there's teams from New York or Indiana or California where they've had that same program for like the last
Yeah,
20 years, even beyond when I was in school. And so that's definitely something, just the continuity of it and the tradition is something that can kind of help with that as well too from the youth level. But it's good. It's more so just at the highest levels, and then when the pros can create a great culture and community within themselves in the city, I think that's really when they start creating even more opportunity for the people that are coming next. And everyone that's involved in Portland basketball right now, or everyone from Portland that's doing it at the next level in a major way, that's their mindset. So I'm kind of just there to help while they're gone and do anything I can that they may ask of me. But it's really cool and it's a really special feeling. And yeah, I think we're just gonna keep building and building
That's
from here.
dope, man. What would be cool is so Kyle Guy, he's from here. He started his own pro-am last summer, and
Yeah.
it was pretty legit, man. Like it was probably one of the better
Okay.
ones. Like people have came and gone from Indy. Like we had a really good pro-am like 10 years ago. Then it kind of like dipped
Yeah.
down. Then we didn't have one for a couple years, and then Kyle stepped up and
Yeah.
made one. And I'm cool with Kyle and his team, and I'm like trying to get him to go on tour. Like we should go like to the Portland Pro-Am.
Man,
Like
okay. I was trying not to cut you off. So that's another thing too. They have Isaiah Thomas has Zekend in Tacoma every year, and he just has like lets a bunch of teams sign up, and a lot of NBA guys will build their own teams. But Peyton, like we're thinking about trying to do something like that next summer, where maybe even if it's only 4 to 6 teams, like just Peyton Pritchard's team, Mike James' team, and then just reach out to 2 more guys and have them bring their own teams, probably definitely from Seattle. But man, if you talk to Kyle Guy, let him know
hey,
there's an invitation. He's more than welcome to come down anytime because that's definitely something that we're looking at doing
he
next
would be
summer.
down for sure. We could do a home and home. Like we'll have to come out there, and y'all have to come out to us at one time.
Man, we could try to make it happen. We could just go play each other somewhere a little bit more convenient
Yeah,
for both of us. We could go
we
meet
could do
somewhere a
like a
little bit more
retreat.
fun.
We could do a
Make it happen,
retreat. Just
but
go to LA and everybody meet in LA, and then we could all have fun after.
yeah,
That'd be dope.
yeah. That's another thing too, because we play the championship in the promo I was talking about a couple years ago when we played. It was Peyton Pritchard's team versus Mike James' team. And Peyton had like 90 points. Mike had like 75 or
That's
something
insane.
crazy. And it's a 48-minute stop clock game. So like true NBA 48-minute stop clock game. Those guys are just gunning. But then it was like the Swaggy P's of the world and all these Drew League guys that got on social media and started just popping off about how the Portland Pro-Am's not like that good. No one would ever do that in the Drew League and all that stuff. So I think some of those guys have kind of wanted to, and then like those guys will go play in the Drew League just on other teams. But it would be really cool if you get a Portland Pro-Am team to go play against maybe some teams from these other way bigger Pro-Ams.
Nah, dude, we're gonna have to talk about that. We'll make it happen for sure.
Easily. Yeah. Do it.
All right, so before I let you go, man, I gotta throw you on the hot seat. This is 7 to 10 random questions about random anything. It's just going to be rapid fire, rapid response. You can go in on topics if you want, but you know what I mean. You don't have to.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
I'm ready.
All right,
hold on. Let me sip some water.
Yeah, you got to get hydrated. I'm sipping out of my Mason school picture mug. Shout out to this $30 mug that I bought. Got my boy on there.
Man. All right.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, who is the best player you've ever played against?
Shit. Like at the time in my mind, or like most difficult, or like on paper, just the best dude.
Do one of each.
Damn it. I played in an open gym against Damian Lillard. So like the best player I've shared the court with is probably Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I was not guarding him. That would have been a waste of time for everyone. But Dame's probably the best player I've played against. And then hardest player for me personally to guard. Shoot. I'm not even gonna say Peyton. It's probably Peyton. It's probably Peyton. But then too, like oh man, that's tough. I can't guard anyone that I train, so I don't even know if there's a point to come up with that. There's also a guy named Troy DeVries. It was a mentor for me. He was playing in the top league in Spain when I was like a sophomore, junior in college. And if you would expect like, hey, sophomore, junior, like all league D2 point guard, if you guys play like 50 games of one-on-one with like different rule sets favoring like different spots, you maybe out of 50 you get like one game or something like that, or at least like you're battling. I don't think I ever beat him in the time we were playing. So Troy DeVries, played for the Defenders in the G League at the end of his career. Probably almost got called up to the Lakers, but he was an absolute bucket. Go on YouTube and search Troy DeVries. He's filthy.
Bet I'm gonna look him up. All right, so it's Christmas time. What is the
Yeah.
worst gift you've ever gotten?
Worst gift I've ever gotten?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I feel like I just forget about them, like they're not good. But like ultimately with a Christmas gift, at least as a giver, like you want to generate some excitement. You want to fill that person's heart with joy. And if you don't do that, or you feel like the reaction's not there, like maybe you feel like you missed with that gift. So I would say anything that just didn't really get me excited, which I might have gotten. Like I remember when I was younger, my mom got me a book on financial literacy, which I think is really cool now, and I would probably give to a high school kid. But at the same time, I was like, what are you talking about?
Uh,
This is Christmas. Like, where's the Xbox or something?
yo.
Socks. Like, I'm not like
Oh shit.
I get hyped when I get new socks. Like getting a fresh pack of socks is fire,
Yeah,
but like I don't want that. I don't want to unwrap some socks on Christmas just because that's a bummer. It could have been something else. It's
dude.
Christmas. I don't need some socks. Jeez.
100%,
Uh,
man. My dad. The reason why I'm
it's just
dying is
it's
because my dad literally just texted me yesterday and was like, "Yo, I'm at Dick's. You like white socks or black socks?"
yes.
I'm like, "Come on,
Like
bro."
thanks for the surprise, Santa. Like
Plus,
that's supposed to be a surprise, right?
plus, I'm 33, and I told him like 5 years ago, "You don't have to get me shit. Like, I'm good."
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness. All right, so I did some research on you obviously before the show, and I looked at your player profile from Anchorage, and you listed your
yeah.
favorite activities as hot yoga and sledding. So those are two vastly different
That's
things.
that's like 2012.
Like, which one do
Okay,
you
so
like
sledding.
more, hot yoga or sledding today?
So those two probably no longer, either of those are in the top 10 anymore. I still am a big yoga guy. I'm not one of those guys, like as a trainer, that's a little like inflammatory to say, because I'm not saying that all players should do yoga
Yeah.
or anything like that. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's the magic secret. But I'm a big hot yoga guy, man. Like I enjoy to sweat. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'll be in the sauna every day if I have the opportunity. Like I just really love sweating. And if you've never done hot yoga, go take a hot yoga class and then walk out. And as you're walking out, tell me that you're not planning to go back.
Yep.
There's probably a few out there that could say honestly that they're not, but it's unbelievable for the mind and body. And I think the summer before that, I was doing it a lot with my buddy back home. I'm still playing basketball, and to be completely honest with you, man, the genesis of my hot yoga journey was a tweet. If you remember Peyton Siva and Russ Smith from
Oh
Louisville, they
yeah.
won a championship in 2013,
Hell yeah.
and it was a tweet Peyton Siva to Russ Smith saying they don't know that hot yoga is the secret to our bounce. And I was like, oh, these dude Peyton Siva is telling me that he's from Seattle too, up the road. He's like, these guys saying hot yoga is the secret to their bounce. I'm like 19. I'm like, all right, bet. Like, where's the closest hot yoga class? Let's go right now.
Hell yeah. That's
Can
dope.
I dunk yet? But yeah, yeah. And then sledding's cool. I'm more of a water sports guy than a winter sports guy. But I was in Alaska. They were telling me about like all the ski stuff. I don't ski, but
Yeah.
I'll get out on the sled and do some damage.
That's dope, man. That's fried. All right. This one's simple. Pancakes, waffles, or French toast. Got to choose one.
Ooh, yeah. I would have said pancakes like a week ago, but I'm gonna go French toast. I'm gonna go
Oh,
French toast, assuming they're all well made.
yeah,
Assuming they're all well made.
yeah. That's
Best French toast over best pancakes and waffles. But if you go on average, I'm going probably pancakes. I know probably a lot of people would advocate for waffles a little harder. Like I used to smack Eggos back in the day.
yeah.
But I'm going French toast, man. I'm going French toast.
That's a sleeper pick. I was expecting pancakes. Sleeper for sure.
I'm going. Yeah, yeah.
I like that. All right,
If
so
you're if you're if anyone's disagreeing, give it some extra thought and
yeah,
see if you can come around to my empathize. Yeah.
this one might get you in trouble. All right, so Voodoo Donuts, right? That's a Portland thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it worth it? Because I went and I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't. It
No,
wasn't it
no,
to
it's
me.
hype. It's just no, it's a hype thing. It's a
All
hype
right.
thing. Uh, I don't know a ton of locals that go to Voodoo like that and are like, oh, let's go to Voodoo Donuts.
Yeah.
It's completely hype, in my opinion. I don't. I'm not worried about any ramifications from me saying that. Blue Star Donuts a lot better. We do have some donut like no, but Voodoo Donuts is not even in my top 5 of donuts in Portland.
Bet. All right. Just had to make sure I wasn't being like a grumpy
No, I
tourist.
appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. That's not a local thing in Portland.
Yeah. Um. All right. This one definitely will get you in trouble. Who wins the ones out of all your clients?
You know what? All I'm gonna say is none of them can really guard each other, and I don't think they would disagree with the. They probably would.
Yeah.
It's gonna be who's making shots that day. Because in my opinion, none of them are gonna lock each other to the point that they're not able to get their shots off, and it's gonna be who's making shots.
Yeah.
Like those, like it's for anyone that has never watched NBA guys or like high level basketball players play 1-on-1 without a crowd in the state. Like it just doesn't really make sense.
It's crazy.
Like I apologize, dude. I'm gonna let they gotta figure that thing out.
I got you.
And two, like even like probably the top two, like honestly, I didn't get the chance to work with him last summer, but I worked with Nasir Little for an extended period of time, and Nas is still a good friend, and he's probably getting all those boys just because he's too physical. He's bigger. He's like
Yeah.
6'6", 230, jacked, freaky athletic. I think Nas might get the win, but I'm gonna have to let them figure that out for themselves.
Yes, sir.
And two, I can't say like Peyton Pritchard, for example, because like even that rivalry, like we're playing a softball game against them next summer again. Like that's like a little like just a little like friendly rivalry that we have going on back home. So I definitely can't go against that or comment too much. We got to keep that alive.
Got you. I love it. All right. Me and you were similar age, right? A couple years. What
Yeah.
did you use to illegally download music when you were growing up?
Through LimeWire.
LimeWire. Facts. Yeah, people don't know about
LimeWire. Then we
LimeWire.
burn it to the CD.
Yep.
Yeah. Then we burn it to the CD.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. What was your? Well, I got one for
What's
you.
up?
What was the last MySpace song that you remember having?
Oh, shoot.
Or did you have a MySpace?
I definitely had a MySpace. So this probably was probably '08, my senior year of high school. I think it was like probably Fireman by Lil Wayne.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the last one I remember having.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that was the last one, but it was the last one I remember having for sure. All right, a couple more here. What is, in your opinion, the best movie of all time?
Ooh. I'm gonna have to go super bad comedy movie.
Love it.
Super bad.
Classic. Could watch it anytime.
Shoot. I'm a huge Harry Potter guy, to be honest. I might watch Harry Potter later tonight. Man, I enjoy all movies. Or not all, I enjoy a lot of movies. Big comedy guy. Law Abiding Citizen, I think, is a very underrated movie too. Yeah, favorite all time, super bad. Super bad for sure.
Love it. If you had to listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I'm trying to not say a Drake album. Shoot. It would probably be like an early Weekend album, like from like before 2013.
Yeah.
Or it would
Yes.
be it might be a Kid Cudi album. That's a tough one.
Man, what's crazy that you brought that up, right? So the Weekend, right? Like sounds like we're both on him kind of early. So he put out like those 3 mixtapes. I can't remember. It was like
trilogy.
House of Balloons,
Trilogy.
Thursday, and something else. But then he put out an album that was called Trilogy. That was just those 3 mixtapes. And I was like,
and then
what the fuck?
Then, so in that album, I actually bought the CD copy. There's a letter from The Weeknd to all of us. Well, at least me and you. Probably not some other Weeknd fans listening. But he said basically like, "Hey, I'm gonna sell out and go pop. and I'm just gonna go make a bunch of money and get rich and like sell out to like the radio genre, like do the mainstream thing. Because he was slightly more underground at that point.
Yeah.
And then
Facts.
he's like, but then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna start making money for you, like making music for you guys again. Like I'm gonna come back to my roots after I like go pop, get rich, blow up. And so I've always given him a pass, like, okay, like maybe you are gonna come back one day, but I don't know. Some things maybe you can't come all the way back from, especially as an artist relying on all these creative outlets or sources of
Yeah.
inspiration to generate that kind of art. It's a tough one, man.
Yeah, he's definitely not back yet. I mean, he's cool. Like I enjoy his music still, but he
Yeah,
ain't doing
yeah,
like
no,
glass table girls and shit like that.
no,
Like
yes,
it's
definitely
different vibes for sure. All right, last one right here. Other than basketball, what was your childhood obsession?
Ooh, ooh, man, it's really been my secondary obsessions have just kind of like slowly just I just switch from one to the next
Yeah,
and just move through those. That's so that there's a lot of things I could say. It's always just it's been other sports like football, baseball. Man, when I got to high school, what was and I've been a little bit of a sneakerhead, especially when I was younger. I
yeah,
kind of got away. I was a huge sneakerhead when I was like middle school, high school. Then I got away from it, honestly, and just started wearing like Vans and Air Maxes. And now I'm kind of like re-dipping my toes back into it.
same.
But probably just other sports, and then probably sneakers.
Facts.
Yeah,
Same. Yeah, I lost it when I went to college because I started wearing them to the bars,
yeah,
and then like
yeah.
get trashed, and
And then
I'm
you get
like,
broke. Yeah,
damn.
yeah, yeah.
All right, I missed one, so we got one more. We're gonna end it
Yeah.
on. Similar to the one album for the rest of your life. I always ask
Ooh,
this: one meal for the rest of your life, like a specific meal from a specific place or made by somebody. What is that
okay.
meal?
Yep. I'm going New York strip steak. Or excuse me, New York skirt steak. I like it cooked medium, which is a little controversial. Um, I want like grilled onions with it, and then probably some sweet potato French fries, and then I'm actually maybe like some mashed potatoes with that, broccoli. I'm going a little bit healthy for it, broccoli, and and then I'm gonna just go hard and have like some ice cream or
Some
cheesecake or
dessert.
something for
Yeah,
dessert.
I could
Sure,
eat
for
that
sure,
for
for
sure.
sure. But no, New York skirt steaks my favorite food in the world. I think.
So I'm a
Oh
I'm a
man, that's
medium
tough. That's
guy.
tough. That's tough.
I'm a medium guy
You
too.
are.
Yeah, medium
It's
guy, no matter the
controversial though.
cut. Because
Yep. Yep.
if if you're out at a restaurant and you order something medium, there's a good chance it's going to go
That is
up or
correct.
down a level. So you just order medium and live with the results, is my
A
theory.
100%. And more likely, the nicer restaurant is going to be lower. Not. It's not going to be. You're not going to order a medium and get a well done. You're going to order a medium and get like a medium rare.
Facts. Yeah.
The
So you just
nicer
got to make
steakhouse
a
you go to, and
decision.
I
Yeah.
just yeah. And call me soft, but I don't like wiping my piece of steak around the plate in blood like it's freaking ketchup before I put it. Like I don't need that. I just
Nah,
yeah, for
I don't
sure.
want blood on any part of my food.
100%.
Like,
And people don't
ever.
take into account like you have to consider the way that it's actually going to be interpreted by the chef. Like communication is what's heard, not just what you say. Like they're gonna want to
Yeah.
cook it close to rare. If you say medium, it's still gonna probably be like medium at the most cooked at best.
Facts. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
People don't get that.
yeah,
All right, man. So you made it through the fire
yeah.
round or the hot seat, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, won't you just tell us where we can find you and how you're accessible?
Oh, shoot. Just really, Instagram's Bounce by Brian. TikTok is also Bounce by Brian, all one word. My email is bounce by Brian, all one word at gmail.com. YouTube, you can find us at Bounce by Brian. Not a ton on there, but we're about to get the YouTube comment coming a little bit. But Pretty much just that. If you just search that on any social media platform, you'll probably find me, and please reach out.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on here with me. We made it through 2 snowstorms in 2 separate parts of America with no connectivity, no Wi-Fi. We're out here defying odds, bro. I appreciate it.
Man, we got it done. That's all that matters. We got
I
the job
love it.
done. I appreciate you a ton. Enjoy the conversation. Highly appreciate you having me on, man. And make sure you don't forget to follow up. See if Kyle Guy wants to make a trip to the Northwest.
And that was episode 9 with Brian McGill. As I mentioned, great dude, great coach. Loved that conversation and catching up with him, getting to learn his outlook on the game and how he wants to impact the game, not only in Portland, but also around the world. So give him a follow. Like you said, Bounce by Brian at every major platform, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, he's on there. And as for this show, if you could please be so kind to leave us a review, like it, share it, rate it, whatever you got to do on whatever platform you're listening to, that would be amazing and greatly appreciated. That helps the show grow, helps new listeners find us, and ultimately helps us bring value to more and more people each week. So again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. So thankful for your support. I hope you guys have a great holiday season, and I'll see you guys next week for another episode.